Hi YouTube family, Lisa A. Romano here, the life coach, and today I want to talk to emotionally abused adult children from dry homes. And what I mean by that is that there are those of us who have suffered just like adult children of alcoholics have in our childhood homes, but we don't have a group meeting to go to. So unlike adult children of alcoholics who have been identified, so to speak, since probably the 1960s, 1970s. It became pretty well known, like the term adult child of an alcoholic. And as in the 1980s, it became even more prevalent, the concept that the idea that alcoholics were traumatizing the families and that the children of these alcoholics were suffering um, excruciating childhoods. It was like they were in war zones, and except they couldn't get out of the war zones. The home was very unpredictable, and mom and dad were not stable. And in lots of cases, if dad was the alcoholic, for instance, he was definitely erratic, chaotic, and the rules were not set, and everything was completely unpredictable. And so, children from those types of homes are not permitted to gain healthy foundations to self because everything's about survival. Um, the interesting thing, there's so many interesting things about growing up in a home that's unpredictable with parents who are mentally unfit, who are mentally ill, who are dysfunctional, and alcoholics are dysfunctional people and they live in denial. And confront an alcoholic and they tell you you're crazy. Well, confront a narcissist that doesn't drink and he'll tell you you're crazy. Confront a narcissistic mother who is completely in love with herself and getting her hair done and worrying about how much she weighs and who's paying attention to her and how many text messages she's getting and who's adoring her. And confront that mother and she'll tell you you're crazy and she'll rip you apart. So when you come from homes that are just not stable, when you come from homes and you're born to people who don't see you, whether those people drink or not, you grow up like an adult child of an alcoholic does. And so this video is, I wanted to make a video to speak to children, adult children who come from homes where mom and dad were mentally ill, or mom was, very insecure and not prepared for the responsibilities of motherhood. Lots of times, men get married and they're not prepared for the responsibilities of, let alone being married, having children. And, they just freak out because they don't feel prepared to deal with child, being a father. And so they kind of like cancel out. Sometimes they go to work, they come home and they sit on the couch and they just like zone out and they can't connect to these children because they don't know how to. They feel inept. But what happens is when you're that guy's kid, you think there's something wrong with you because you can't get to dad. Dad's blocked. And, you try to connect to dad because that's what kids do. Kids come into this world wanting to connect to mom and dad. So when mom and dad are blocked, either because they're self-absorbed or they're emotionally stuck in some immature stage of emotional development, that hurts us as their children because it's their job to validate us and make us feel seen. So, for anyone out there who's clicked on this video, if you grew up feeling invisible, you literally are our brothers and sisters, Just because your mom and dad didn't drink doesn't mean you're not like an adult child of an alcoholic. You're a wounded adult child, which is, I'm writing my 5th book right now, and that's what it's going to be all about. Trying to extend this umbrella or extend and expand this idea of what happened to so many of us when we were children. And trying to really, really create the idea that, very simply, if you grew up in homes where your parents did not see you and did not validate you, you are wounded. So now you can't connect to self. You seek validation outside of self. Most of us are codependent, but some of us have become narcissistic. If you're beat enough and you're beat down enough, then you can become the type of person later on in life who's like all out. You're like, you got to take care of yourself now. Like, you don't care about anybody else but you now. And that you're a product of your environment. Narcissists are very difficult to deal with, though, because they think they're perfect. And so it's very much easier to deal with a codependent or a love addict who's in pain, because they get to points where they are crying out for pain. They're crying out for help. Narcissists, they just get pissed. Like, how dare you confront me? How dare you insinuate that there's something wrong with me? You know, my son was dating a narcissist, but on the surface, this kid thought she was perfect, and never really took into consideration how, demanding she was of my son and how she minimized my son. And so, but on the surface, it was very difficult to really acknowledge from the surface how narcissistic she really was. And to confront her, she popped a cork, because in her head, she was perfect. So you really can't deal with narcissists, confront them that way, because you're not going to get through. Codependence, my son was the one that was struggling in pain. I'm codependent. I was codependent, recovering codependent. So I understood my son's pain. I understand your pain. If you're codependent, chances are that you were emotionally abused as a child. For my son saw me. I was codependent on his dad. His dad had absolutely no empathy for me whatsoever, completely blocked emotionally. And my son picked up a lot of, unfortunately, my ways of relating to people. And him and his dad always clashed. And my ex-husband did not validate him. And so a lot of my son's codependency came from that relationship, because he never felt seen by his dad. But he took on a lot of my qualities in terms of relating to women. And so we do teach our children how to relate to other people in the future. So if you're codependent, then you've been taught to be codependent. If you're codependent, then someone in your life taught you to be codependent. If you're codependent, chances are that somebody in your life invalidated you, that you loved, just would not, could not, would not, whatever, couldn't, whatever, see you and couldn't connect to you. You were not valid to that authority in your life. And so a self that we have, that we're all born with, needs to be turned on. We don't come into this life experience attached to ourself. That psychological understanding of a self must be objectified from the outside. So I have 3 children. It's my job to say to them, each of them, how do you feel? What do you think? Would you like to have a sweet potato with your dinner, or would you like to have broccoli with your chicken? The idea is to have my children feel objectified by their mother. The idea is to get a child to feel like something inside of them is real. That something inside of them is real, and something inside of them has a right to feel. And it is appropriate to ask self, do I want the sweet potato, or do I want the broccoli? Do I want to hang out with him, or don't I want to hang out with him? Do I want to go to the movies with her, or don't I want to go to the movies with her? It really, really does lay the foundation for children to be able to ask themselves questions and to honor themselves. I know myself, when I understood that I was codependent, my therapist said to me, "What's your favorite color?" I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "What's your husband's favorite color?" I was like, "Green." "What's your favorite meal?" I don't know." "What's your husband's favorite meal?" "Spaghetti and meatballs." What's your husband's favorite holiday? "Oh, he loves the 4th of July." "What's your favorite holiday?" "Oh, I don't think I have one." When I began to realize that I knew more about other people than I did about myself, I was stunned. I was terrified. I was scared. I was excited, because I was like, maybe if I start paying attention to myself, I can get out of this hole that I'm in. But there was a lot of sadness also, because I was like, where am I? Like, where did I go? Did I ever exist? And, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because I don't think that I think when I was very small, like 7 or 8 or 9, I think I was very connected to myself. I was very sad, but that was real. And I think as I got older, I started pushing that away. By the time I was 11 or 12, I had this huge chip on my shoulder, and I felt like, I had to protect myself from my mom. I was a little bit more mouthy, so I was pushing her back a little bit more. I was still afraid of her. But I got the idea that, I could leave, I could just walk out of the house and go ride my bike, go fishing or whatever. I could get away from her. I wasn't like 6 anymore. And so I got a real chip on my shoulder. But the reality was I was very sad and I was very lonely inside, but nobody could have known that. So I think when I was very small, I was very connected to myself and my truth. That's why I was so sad. And then between the ages of 12 and 33, I think I just kept losing myself, just really just a little bit at a time. And getting engaged at 21, what is that? Don't do that. Don't do that, dear ones. Don't get married. Don't get engaged so early. But getting engaged and having 3 children, being 33 and being so unhappy and being diagnosed with clinical depression. I think when I was about 33 that when I realized that I didn't know who I was, like that was like a very sad place to be, but it was the beginning. It was the beginning of the second part of my life. And coming full circle and realizing like, oh my God, I am a people pleaser, and I'm a people pleaser because I don't know who I am. No one ever made me feel valid. I have been conditioned to worry more about what other people think about me than what I think about myself. And so understanding that people pleasers are tuned up for narcissistic type others, and then learning to combat that by pulling back and asking myself, wait, what do I think? What do I feel? And developing strategy steps to combat that old programming. So, dear ones, if you have been emotionally abused as a child, please continue to watch my videos for adult children of alcoholics because you qualify. And hopefully one day, we will have this very general, very broad understanding that if any child, any adult child that came from a home where they were minimized, whether their parent was an alcoholic or mentally unfit or depressed or aloof or self-absorbed, narcissistic, whatever, that, we will be able to have meetings for wounded adult children, just adult children who had lost childhoods. And it won't be just about adult children from alcoholic homes, or it just won't be, it won't be exclusive. And because we don't want to keep excluding one another. We want to start, as the world evolves and we move into 50 realities, and we understand things on a quantum level, we have to understand that separation is what hurt us in the first place. Feeling separate from mother and father, from our siblings, and from the rest of the world is really what made us feel alienated. Not feeling like we belonged. Being born to people who pushed us away instead of made us feel like we were part of them and like they loved us is what really hurt us in the first place. And so my goal, on my journey, and I'll never stop, trying to make this a reality for all of us, all wounded adult children, until we all feel like we're one, like we are brothers and sisters. When you're out and about and you see someone who's angry, they're probably a wounded adult child. Something happened to them. And so if we can have empathy and compassion for that person, that doesn't mean we have to go save them, but just empathy and compassion instead of judging them. We've been judged. So the goal really is to begin understanding that if there is anybody in your experience that's ornery and unhappy, chances are they're a wounded adult child. Like their mom and dad did them dirty. They did something wrong. And our parents are they're the most influential people in our lives. So if we're suffering today, it's because mom and dad didn't do the best job that they could have done. But then again, this isn't about judging. This is about understanding, seeing it for what it is, learning, and trying to do better in our life with our children so that they don't make the same mistakes that we did. To all the dads out there watching this video, pay attention to the way you treat your wife, because the way you treat your wife is the way your daughter's going to think she should be treated. So if you're messing around, chances are your daughter's going to attract a man who messes around. Moms, if you're like nasty to your husband, pay attention. If you have a son, he's going to attract someone just like you that talks to him the way you talk to his dad. So that's all I have to say for today. Please check my stuff out at www.healingselfesteem.com. And if you want to coach with me one-on-one, just drop me an email at healingselfesteem@gmail.com. It's been my pleasure to bring this video to you today. I bow to the love and the light in you, dear ones.